Hey, what you see here is a table wrapped in craft paper. What I'm going to do today is build a new PC. This one here is about 5 years old and it's ready for a refresh. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put it in a case. I'm actually going to mount it on a flat surface like a board, or frame it so that I can hang it on the wall. Some people will put them inside a desk. They'll have like a clear top and they'll put it inside the desk flat. And I figured it'd be kind of fun to put up on the wall. So now that we have this, I have a box of parts over here. What I'm going to do is lay them out on this, and this is going to be sort of my template because I don't really know how I want them arranged. So I want to place them on here, and then I can trace them out, put the holes in, and then just cut this craft paper out of the table, use that as a template for when I go to mount it onto the final piece of wood. You will probably see me working on this without a static strap. In all the years I've been doing this, I've experienced one ESD that destroyed a part. It was a memory stick. It was because I was wearing a wristband. So I don't use them. All right, let's get started. So this is what I decided to go with. MSI, an Intel chipset here. I'm not going to really talk about any of the parts here. If anybody is interested, there are way better resources on what sort of system you might want. It took me a long time to find all these parts and for the reasons I went with them. So for this, I'm not going to go into the reasons why I purchased the set that I did here, but we'll just go ahead and start unboxing here. All right, so we've got Wi-Fi antennas. Got our motherboard. All right, I'm gonna move this off to the side actually. Let's get the rest of this stuff out of the box. There's some more stuff down here. Got some rad stickers that I can put on the case and stuff like that. What we got here? Some camouflage. I guess they go on the parts there. Probably not going to use those. Another badge. This looks like I don't know what that is. We'll figure that out later. M2 locker, so that's what holds down the drives, the M2 drives. Installation guide. What do we got? Join us and send us more money, and the booklets, and then a couple of, another M2 locker, great, because I have two. And some SATA connectors. All right, let's get rid of the box, make sure we got everything. Yep. So we'll keep the quick install and the manual out. We are done with motherboard unboxing. So for the main processing, I decided to go with the i7 12700 KF. This is the 12th gen i7, as you can see. The KF means that it does not have onboard graphics, also described here where it says discrete graphics required, because I do have a graphics card, and you can see I haven't even opened it. I'm actually going to leave this sealed for now. I really don't need this out right now, and the less dust and handling of this, the better. So I'm going to keep this sealed up in the box for now. This is the power supply unit I decided to go with. So you can see this is a Seasonic 80 plus titanium, 1000 watts. Seemed like a good unit, so that's what we're going to go with. I did a little bit of research on power supplies. I think that Seasonic, like I said, I'm not going to make this a review really, because there's plenty of review sites out there that do a way better job of this. I consider this a top tier power supply. When I'm building PCs, I feel like probably the most important component, doesn't matter what CPU you get, doesn't matter the motherboard, graphics card, any of that doesn't matter if you don't have good power. I can tell you from experience, having a really cheap power supply that just can't handle the power requirements of the system that you have is going to cause you problems for sure. It's almost always the thing I see. If it's underpowered, that's where you get weird errors that you can't figure out what's going on. So I highly recommend, if you're going to spend a lot of money on one component, definitely the power supply. In general, I think it's just better to get what you think you want. I wouldn't go with the idea that you are going to upgrade later on. In my history of doing all of this, and as many PCs as I've ever had, I have not once upgraded without upgrading multiple components. The technology changes so fast and so frequently. The idea of upgrading just isn't really going to happen. I just think that you should get the parts you want, spec out a system that's within your budget, and buy it, put it together, and then just consider that the next time you're going to do any sort of upgrading or that you want a new system, you're probably going to buy all these components again. The great thing is that these computers still work, right? There's nothing wrong with them. I tend to keep mine around and use them for projects in the house. Like sometimes, like the current system that I showed you behind me here is probably going to go in my garage, right? Like I said, it's going to be a media server. I have another computer sitting in this closet over here that will probably end up in my garage at some point in time. So, these things can be used elsewhere, but don't try to skimp on parts, and especially not the power supply. Let's see, this is user manual. Let's get this out of here. This is, I think this is an adapter or possibly just a cap. I'm not sure. Looks like it opens, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what this is about. Power cables, these are all just the various connectors. So this is a modular power supply, so these are all the cables and such. The power supply, it's pretty small. It's just great. All right, let's see what we got here. And when I bought these parts, I was actually buying them with the appearance in mind. Most of the time you won't even see this stuff because it's just buried in a case somewhere. But since all of this stuff is going to be visible because it's going to be, mounted onto a board, right? I mean, I'm going to be looking at it, so I want it to be kind of a nice design. And actually, this was one of the nicer designs. So there's nothing obtrusive about this. There is a fan under here. I don't know if you can see it. Basically that big right there. Anyway, it's a nice little power supply. I don't know if you can read all that, but there's the model number. It's an SSR 1000TR Seasonic fully modular TX1000. There we go. All right, power supply. Okay, I know you guys are all waiting for it. What kind of graphics card did I get? All right, here we go. We got the GeForce 3080 Ti, EVGA. I think these are great cards. I'm an NVIDIA fan, and I've also been an EVGA fan for a long time. I think some of you have probably heard this might be the last greatest card from EVGA, so I'm happy to have it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, essentially EVGA is not doing business with NVIDIA any longer, so they will not be making NVIDIA graphics cards. So we've got a retention bracket for, I think this is for, yeah, some chassis need that. I don't think I will need this, but let's see. Install guide, little EVGA badge. Let's get this bad boy out of here. Yes. So again, I'm just going to keep everything in the static bags until I'm ready for it. But there it is. Nice looking card. All right, next up, what do we got? The way that I'm designing this system is I have two volumes. I have the root volume where, the OS is installed And then I have sort of the media drive, if you will. So it's a larger array. Stuff that I care more about, it's, not just the OS. Like the OS can be reinstalled, not a big deal. It's more of the data that I'm concerned with. The access to it doesn't need to be that fast. So it's like things like music, or when I'm editing these videos, things like that. So what I do is I have these Seagate drives. They're 4 terabytes each, and I have 4 of them. So I will set these up basically as either a RAID 10 or a RAID 5. I haven't decided yet. A RAID 10 would get me 8 terabytes. If I did a RAID 5, I would probably get 12, I think. Basically 12. Space is pretty cheap, so I feel like RAID 5 is probably enough for my purposes. If this is going to be my media array, so I'm just going to set those aside over here. Then for the main system, the main drive, I have these M2 drives, and these are 1 terabyte each, and there are actually 2 of them. There's one here, and there's another one under here, right there. These are both the same. So these are the Samsung 980 Pro. These are M.2 drives, PCIe 4 and NVMe, 1 terabyte each. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a RAID 1 on this. So it's just going to be a mirror. So it'll be a 1 terabyte drive, but it'll be fully redundant. This is the main system drive. I've never used these before, but I've heard good things about them, so I'm excited to use them. All right, and then we have RAM. So this is the Crucial Ballistics gaming memory. And I didn't go crazy on the memory. I kind of actually went with memory that didn't look terrible. If I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't know what it is about memory these days, but they just look terrible. I mean, they're just so chunky looking. I can't stand it. These were pretty good. They have LEDs on here, but they're not ugly. I mean, they're not great looking, but honestly, this was the best looking one I could find. That's what they are. They're just kind of nice. They also just kind of match all the rest of the stuff I have here, so that's them. Pretty basic stuff. So this is 64 gigs total memory. And that's almost all of it. There's a few other little parts that I have here, like this guy. This is a PCIe bridge, essentially. It's an extender, and this specifically was needed for my application. This plugs into the graphics card right here, and this part right here plugs into the motherboard. So this allows you to move the graphics card off of the motherboard. Normally this card would sit upright into the motherboard. This monster would sit here pretty much like that. Well, I'm not going to do that. It's going to be mounted, something like this. So this allows me to plug into here. I can plug this in, this can be routed around. I might actually need a different one. I haven't really figured it out. One more component, and this is actually kind of a temporary thing because I think I might want to do liquid cooling on this, partly because it is all exposed. I'm more comfortable with doing a liquid cooled system because if any coolant is coming out or leaking, then I know where it's coming from and I can catch it. It's probably not going to drip on anything because it's going to be hanging up on my wall, so it'll be, if anything, just dripping onto the floor, which is fine. I mean, not ideal, but I'll see it sooner than if it were just spraying fluid or whatever all over to the inside of the computer. So I have one more component that I'm going to use temporarily for cooling, and it's a little bit ridiculous. I don't know. I think I went a little overboard on this, but I kind of thought it was funny. Let me grab it. And this thing is just like a monster. I mean, it is so massive, but geez, look at this thing. It doesn't even fit in the field of view, but this is a Noctua NHD15. It's a big CPU cooler, and I mean big. This thing, I mean, it's hard to see just how big this thing is, but let me get it out of the box. It's definitely one of the biggest components of this system. It's absurd. I'm just gonna be honest, it's absurd. This right here is the actual fan module for it. Let's see. So this is the fan that goes on the top. It's pretty big. Nice fan. I like Noctua fans. They're nice and quiet. They have good flow, all that jazz. All right. So there it is. Thing is just enormous. Anyway, this is a really large heatsink for such a small package here. Polished surface there, ground, so it's nice. So there's the heatsink. I'm gonna put that right over there. So there's a bunch of fan leads, some nice thermal paste in there. It's the other clips for the other fan. And then we've got a bunch of stuff, grommets, risers, screws, brackets, more brackets. There's another mounting bracket here. I think this is the back plate. Yep. So this is for the Intel chip and create the connection. All right. And that's a little ways away. What's that? Oh, it's a tool. Yeah. What is this? Oh, that's kind of cool. Little screwdriver for reaching down there. Probably won't use that, but it's nice they include that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start laying them out on this craft paper in roughly the way that I want them to be. And then once I have kind of like a general layout, what I'll do is, you know, trace them out, mark the mounting holes and all that stuff for these things. And then I will probably cut out this craft paper. And then that way I'll have a template and I can take that out to my shop and actually build the board, and I'll have the spec of what I need in terms of like putting that together. I did get this box of, these are just, you know, like these risers and stuff like that so that I can get it mounted to the board properly. All right, I'll bring you back when I have a little bit more. This is basically the rough layout. This is all just kind of mocked up right now, but just so you can kind of see what I'm going for here. Obviously I need a few more parts, but you'll kind of see how I'm going to do. Everything is just going to be kind of visible, but this will be very like tidied up and wrapped. If you look at this frame right about there, it is going to be about the size of the board that I'm going to make. So in this spot here, I'm kind of leaving open for the future liquid cooling, like the pump and the reservoir. And then, you know, on this side, I might put another pump or something. We'll just have to see how that lays out. I'm leaving it open just in case. So this fan isn't really attached, it's just kind of mocked up. It's just sitting there on the bracket. The CPU is still not in, I still have it over there, but essentially this is what it's going to look like. Now I made two mistakes in terms of like buying parts for this. The first one was like when you saw me unbox the motherboard, and I didn't notice this until literally I was kind of fitting the RAM. Apparently when I ordered this board, I ordered the DDR5 version of it and I bought DDR4 RAM. So I had to buy a new motherboard. And unfortunately the DDR5 motherboard was way past its return window. I sat on this for a long time for various reasons, and I was waiting for other parts to come in. So last night I started mocking this up and realized that that was a problem, and then also I needed to get a different PCIe cable. The other one just wasn't really long enough to do what I needed to do here with this, so that's just gonna be kind of how it looks. I kind of like it. It looks cool. And then it also just, like, in case I want to put any cards here, it leaves room to put the cards in here for that reason. So like maybe a USB card or some other capture device, who knows, we'll see. But I just wanted to leave it open just in case. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna trace out the boards where they kind of sit, you know, and kind of where these are, just roughly, so that I have an idea, so that I can just cut this out. I can move all these pieces, kind of package them back up and get them out of the way so they're not gonna get damaged. And then I will take that template and make the actual wood platform that I'm going to put these on. So obviously these data cables that go to the hard drives, obviously I'm not going to mess with those. I'm just going to use these. I need to get a couple other ones, but you can kind of see how the format I'm going for here. Obviously it'll look a lot better once I get it all packaged up. So a couple of things about this layout that I wanted to emphasize. One of the things is that all of the connectors are facing down. So this is going to be if you kind of pretend this is the bottom of the board, that's going to be facing, like it'll be oriented this way, right? The power cable, all of the peripherals, and the display will all be just pointing down toward the floor. But in terms of the power delivery, which, is on this side right here, so I'm going to do some custom cables here. So I'm not going to use these stock cables over here. I'm just going to use, I bought connectors, just blank connectors with uncrimped pins, all that stuff. And I'll make the power cables to go to all of these parts. Okay, so I will bring you back when I have more, and see you next time.